UFC's fight night. Not every, yeah, it was a great time. For that to be a free event, just like you talked about with boxing, it was definitely worth the entertainment for sure.
Oh, for sure. I mean, to think that even the fights that have been before this, what Dana White has been doing, and I'm going to keep preaching it because I absolutely love Dana White and what the UFC has done during this pandemic. They have done a better job than any other sport or organization, and it's really showing that they are trying their hardest to pump out as much great content as possible. And as a fan, I get to sit back, relax, and enjoy myself. And with this night of fights, we had two special fights. We had Jessica Andrade and moving up in weight class and taking on Katlyn Chookagian, who's the number one flyweight contender. And this was going to decide who faces Valentina Shevchenko next. And then the main event, Brian Ortega makes his 2-year return after taking a step back, and then returning against the Korean Zombie, who has been great. He is pretty much the reason that I started to watch the UFC. You know, he was one of the first fights I've ever seen, and I love watching these guys fight. I think and to know that this whoever won this was then going to go face Alexander Volkanovski. You know, just the stakes and the caliber of fighter that we were getting in each of these fights from both sides. It was great to see, because these are fights you only can see in pay-per-view events usually. But that's where the UFC is being different, and they're saying, nope, we're going to make this event that everybody can see, that's going to get more people tuned in and get them to start paying more attention to the UFC. So,
and it absolutely did. It did exactly what Dana White was looking for, because their ratings were absolutely through the roof on Saturday night, beating out some of the major things that were happening on television and on cable. It definitely was a positive sign for the UFC as a whole. But I want to start off with the first fight that you talked about, Jessica Andrade and Katlyn
Chookagian.
Yes, I mess up her name every single time. Jessica Andrade and Katlyn Chookagian. This was quite an interesting fight. Now, personally, I thought Jessica Andrade had this from the get-go. I thought that she was the better fighter going into this, and the only thing that made me hesitate just a little bit is that Katlyn Chookagian is a very technical fighter. She takes her strikes in stride. She makes sure that she has, everything lines up perfectly, and then she strikes at the perfect time. Where Jessica Andrade, she's just, she's an animal. She just attacks and she doesn't let up. And that's exactly what we saw with her second round TKO. She went after the legs, then she went after the body, then she kept switching back and forth wherever the opening ended up. And then she really, when you saw the first wince of major pain from Katlyn Chookagian, you knew that she was going to just absolutely obliterate the body and the abdomen specifically, until she got Katlyn down onto the ground, and then that's when she finished off the fight. But watching that, I felt that pain. I felt it, like, just watching it, I was like, oh my God, that is absolutely terrible, that what she's going through right now. But I do want to hear from a more technical standpoint what you thought of it as well.
Well, what I was really interested to see in this fight was how Jessica Andrade was going to handle the increased weight. How is she going to handle a new weight class? And how is she going to handle a female fighter like Katlyn, who was 8 inches taller than her? How is she going to be able to handle that reach and that height difference? She handled it beautifully. I couldn't have imagined that fight going better for Jessica Andrade. And like you said, it's the tenacity and the fury that she fights with. Katlyn was sitting back in a lot of that fight and waiting for things to come to her, waiting to figure out.
And that's the type of fighter she is, though, that,
right.
So I think that's perfect for Andrade to realize, like, this is the type of fighter I want to go at first in this weight class before I get a real taste of what's going to happen.
Right. And one thing with Jessica is she's been there. She's been a champ. She's been in this game for so long. She knows how to spot weaknesses and how to take advantage of them. And her game is so strong all around that it doesn't matter where it's taking place, whether it's striking or on the ground. She's going to dominate, and I don't think Katlyn was ready for the power and the speed at which Jessica was going to fight with. When she took that first shot, she realized what she got herself into, because she was literally getting pushed back by punches from this 5'1.5" female fighter, just absolutely obliterating her with each punch and each hit, and then picked her up, threw her down the ground, and started ground and pounding her, because she's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's what Jessica does. She was tough for Rose Namajunas twice. She was the champ in the strawweight division. She's been there. She knows how to fight people at the highest of caliber, and I think Katlyn just was underprepared going to this, and Jessica's veteran, her veteran status and her just legacy in the UFC really carried through, and I think she really knew what she was doing, and this is going to match up great with Valentina Shevchenko, who is able to just calibrate perfectly and knows how to dissect you and knows where to hit you. So I think this is going to be a great matchup, how Valentina is going to be able to handle the speed and strength of a female fighter like Jessica Andrade, and how Jessica Andrade is going to be able to handle the counterattack that Valentina Shevchenko is going to throw at her. It's going to be very, very interesting and fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I think Shevchenko is going to take plenty of time to review the footage from her previous fights, but specifically this fight. And if I'm in her coaching circle, I'm saying you need to be the aggressor, because if you can get her off of her game, which is her being the aggressor, speaking of Andrade, then I think you have an actual legitimate shot to overpower her, especially with again, we're talking about somebody who has a deficit in the size in this division. She's going to struggle if she's not the aggressor, if she's not the one who is absolutely pushing people back into a corner and dictating the terms in which they're fighting. So I think Valentina Shevchenko has plenty on her plate to train for, but she definitely should have a solid game plan moving forward.
Most definitely. Valentina Shevchenko is one of the hardest working female fighters there are, and she is going to dissect everything that Jessica Andrade has done. She's going to look at what Rose did. I mean, if we go back to what the last two fights that Jessica had, or last three fights, I should say, she fought Rose twice in that time. She beat her the first time, but the entire time Rose was winning that fight. It was when she dropped her on her head and ended in a knockout. That's the only reason she won that fight. But if it had gone to decision, Jessica would have lost that fight. And so you're going to look at what Rose did the first and second time on how to defeat Jessica Andrade, and then look at all of her fights to see where she's improved in her game, where there are still weaknesses. I think Valentina's going to do a great job, and she is just masterful when it comes to picking apart her opponents. So I think it's still going to be an extreme challenge for Jessica. And now with the balance in height, I think you're going to face a much different fighter in Valentina Shevchenko, because she's going to have similar power to Jessica Andrade. It's not going to be like Katlyn, who is a lot leaner because she's so much taller. It's going to be more compact and more powerful, and it's going to be similar strength on each side. So Jessica's going to have to figure out how to handle somebody that matches up like herself. She's going to have to find a replica of herself to fight against, or to practice against at least. It'll be interesting to see how they match up, or how they practice and get ready for this fight. And we're probably not going to see this until February or March of next year. So there's still some time. They've got plenty of time to get ready for this. And by then, they should be ready for this. They should be on their game plan. And very looking forward to that fight.